Joining me now is the former Minister for Social Welfare, Gender and Children Affairs in Sierra Leone, Dr. Sylvia Blyden. Thank you for joining us on the news of this hour. Let's begin with your assessment, well, rather brief assessment of what has transpired in the past 21 years. It's the fifth election since the end of your country's brutal civil war. Do these successive exercises somehow reflect to any extent the entrenchment of democracy and its values in Sierra Leone?
Most definitely. As a matter of fact, I was a political party leader in the very first elections that was held immediately after the war, 21 years ago. I had led a party that was called the Young People's Party, and those elections were a real test of Sierra Leone's democracy. And as leader of the Young People's Party at that time, I gave a thumbs up to the way the elections were conducted by the then electoral commissioner. It was fantastic, and it really proved that the war had ended in Sierra Leone. Now, moving on from the 21 years ago elections when I was a party leader, the next elections were held in the year. Those elections were also conducted pretty much amicably well. And then we had, which were also conducted amicably well. And then we had the elections of the last elections before this one, which was the 2018 elections. It was also conducted pretty well, but there were issues. And these were issues that actually hovered around the legality of the process, whether certain laws were obeyed in the way they were to have been obeyed. So I was on record as taking the process to the Supreme Court in Sierra Leone, and I argued that case at the Supreme Court in Sierra Leone. And the Supreme Court gave out a series of rulings in that case. They ruled against me because the points that I brought to the Supreme Court was that you cannot conduct elections if you don't count at the district level according to what the law says. And when the Supreme Court ruled, they cited the case of Buhari in Nigeria against Obasanjo as one of the precedents that they used to throw away that argument. So it is already on record in Sierra Leone, in a ruling at the highest Supreme Court in the land, that you do not have to obey the laws, the electoral laws, if you need administrative ease of reference.
Interesting.
Now move forward to this election this year.
Okay.
Yes, my brother.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yes. Now let's move forward now to these elections that are coming up. It's very sad to realize that issues that have already been handled at the Supreme Court has already ruled that if the Electoral Commission decides that for administrative ease, they do not want to tally, they do not want to count at the district offices. They want to do the tallying at the regional offices where they would create temporary district offices. The Supreme Court has already given a ruling. But you have people, unfortunately, now making a lot of fuss about something that has already been ruled against. I took that matter to the Supreme Court. I got the judgment against me. I got the Supreme Court's ruling. And it's very sad to see people now bringing up these same issues again that are pretty much non-issues. The Supreme Court cited not only the Buhari versus Obasanjo case, they also cited the Raila Odinga versus Kenyatta case. So we don't have any legs to stand on in protesting about the tallying process.
All right.
So
beyond the legal concerns,
democratic elections.
Yes, beyond the legal concerns that you've highlighted, I just want us to quickly explore some more interesting aspects of the Sierra Leone election. The country itself has a population of around 8 million thereabout, but less than 3.3 million, we understand, are registered to vote in this election. Are you concerned? What would you say, rather, is responsible for what appears an apathy, a lack of enthusiasm in participating in this exercise?
I do not agree that there is lack of enthusiasm. As a matter of fact, this is going to be one of the most heavily contested elections. People are going to come out in numbers. People are going to come out massively to register. Massively to vote. So there's no apathy there. As a matter of fact, I believe that we're going to have probably the highest ever voter turnout since the war ended. Now, talking about the actual numbers, the population versus the number of people who registered as voters, I guess that's what you're asking about, the disparity there.
Exactly.
Is that a question, that there's a disparity between the
3.3 million
and the
out of
number
8 million, exactly.
Yes. Well, if you look at Sierra Leone's demographics over the years, in all these elections that we have held, it's pretty much been the same thing. The population that gets registered as against the population that the census figures give out is always different. So if you look at the percentage over the years, starting from 21 years ago to now, there's no disparity there. It's perfectly normal.
All right.
Voter registration is accurate. These are numbers. Censuses are not actual numbers. These are not accurate numerical numbers. These are estimates. Whereas voter registration, these are actual numbers.
You seem quite satisfied with the participation of voters in Sierra Leone. But people under the age of 35, we understand, make up about 60% of the voting age population. And from the figures we read earlier, that makes about 1.78 million young people who are registered to vote tomorrow. There seems to be a young people movement in West Africa, especially if you followed what happened in Nigeria earlier this year. Has that movement come of age in Sierra Leone, and how do you expect them to participate tomorrow?
As I told you earlier, 21 years ago, I was inspired to lead a political party, a brand new party that we called the Young People's Party. And I took that party to the elections 21 years ago against the then. Now, what happened from that moment on was it created an awareness that young people, because at the time I was 29 years of age when I actually became the leader, and by the time we went into the elections, I was 30 years of age when I became the leader who took a political party to elections. But what ended up happening was it raised a wave of awareness. So Sierra Leone has never, for the last 21 years, we've not had a problem with young people participating. We've always had young people actively participating. So I think the other countries, they're catching up with us. We've already been there. Since 21 years ago, I set the stage, I got people inspired, and young Sierra Leoneans have always been very much active in our elections. This is not a new phenomenon for us. They are catching up with us now.
Okay, interesting way you put it. Dr. Blyden, we have to go, but your predictions for the June election have changed over time, from saying that President Bio will lose to predicting a presidential runoff. Recently, you predicted that the president will win first rounds, but will not get 55%.
No, I haven't predicted that he will win the first round.
I'm just wondering what your current prediction is right now and how you're sure that your party might get a runoff.
I don't belong to the president's party. I actually belong to the opposition as of now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when I predicted, I predicted that he's going to lose the elections 2 years ago. I made that prediction. And my brother, in the last 2 years, we have seen unprecedented developments in this country, both negative and positive. In 2 years, we have seen my party, that was supposed to be the party that would be beating the president hands down. We have seen my party descend into an orgy of negativity that this country has never seen before. So it has seriously damaged our chances, where I was convinced 2 years ago that we were going to beat President Julius Maada Bio hands down. With what has happened in the last 2 years, the way we got our party being portrayed as a party that uses terrorism, a party that associates with the abuse of the rights of citizens, a party that associates with things that are negative. It has seriously affected the perception of the people. But one thing I can tell you is that my party is still very formidable, and so it is not going to be easy for the president to get a first round victory.
We see how it plays out tomorrow. I'm afraid we have to go there. We wish Sierra Leone well, and hopefully that the tension that has been highlighted by ECOWAS and AU will also be doused in the coming hours.